This is the Podcast Express, and we're talking to whoever's listening out there. Welcome to 5 Minutes of Trouble, the only podcast on the internet that discusses the John Carpenter film Big Trouble in Little China 5 minutes at a time. I'm Josh Horowitz from the Wing Kong Exchange at www.wingkong.net.
I'm your co-host and passenger, Brett Stillo.
And today we have a very special guest on the Podcast Express. We have actress, photographer, and journalist, as well as female Wing Kong guard herself, Lia Chang. Welcome to the podcast, Lia.
Thank you for having me.
This is really awesome. You are our first guest on the show who actually worked on Big Trouble in Little China, and we're honored to have you.
Wow.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Just a little bit of background how I was able to get in touch with Lia. I went to a screening of Big Trouble in Little China over at the Japanese American Museum in Los Angeles about a year and a half ago. And a bunch of cast members and crew from Big Trouble were there to, answer questions and just be there for the screening. And I got a chance to meet Lia at that point. This was when this podcast was not even on the radar. But I've stayed in touch with her, and she agreed to be on. So we're very happy that you're here, Lia.
Well, that was such an amazing night. That was actually the first time I'd met a lot of my cast members. It was so cool to be in a room where, and I'd actually never seen Big Trouble on the big screen. So to be in a theater where everybody was a fan of Big Trouble, and then to be on that dais afterwards with all of my cast members was really, really exciting.
Yeah. Now you never had seen it on the big screen from the time you had filmed it?
No, I've only seen it actually, on television.
Wow.
I'd never seen it on the big screen.
Huh. What did you think, having seen it for, I guess, the first time so many years later?
I loved it just as much as everybody else does. I mean, it's amazing. We're celebrating 30-year anniversary of the film, and so many. Every time I turn around, there's another screening celebrating the 30-year anniversary happening in another city, in another country. In December, actually, there's an official making of the Big Trouble in Little China book coming out by Tara Bennett and Paul Terry.
Yeah.
So right. I know that would be of great interest to many Big Trouble in Little China fans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've already done my pre-order for that and the Art of Big Trouble in Little China. There's some really neat books, not to mention the comic books. I think it was you who first sort of gave me the heads up about that. But yeah, there's going to be the Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York crossover comic. And that's going to be
right.
Coming.
And the person who created it is actually Greg Pak, who is half Korean. Mm-hmm. And has been doing a lot of work in the comic book world. So it's really great to have Asian American creators working on these projects.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we were talking about on previous episodes of the podcast was that Big Trouble was a first in many cases for many Asian American actors. Specifically, when we were talking about the fight scene, some of the actors who were, so the Chang sings, but they were also like martial arts coordinators. Apparently, this was the first time in an American film that they were all Asian Americans. James Liu and some of the other ones there.
Well, since you were at that screening, Jeff Imada, who has continued to work with John Carpenter, he actually said that this was one of the very few times that there was an all-Asian cast, with the exception of a few Caucasians. Mm-hmm. But what he loved the most was getting the greatest martial arts artists in the area from Northern California and Southern California on the project.
Oh, yeah.
And they've all really stayed in touch and have become close, fast friends.
Yeah, it's really a who's who. Jared Nakamura and Ali Young, and it just, it's like an all-star. It's the all-star team.
It is. And I'm very excited to have been a part of it.
Yeah, not everybody can say that they were actually a part of Big Trouble in Little China. So that's very cool.
Well, and James Hong, who, is really, he's a veteran. He's in the industry. He in his early days, worked on Blade Runner and Chinatown, but he says that he gets asked the most about his role as Lopan in Big Trouble in Little China, and is very popular, at autograph conventions and such.
I know, absolutely. That
Yeah.
is probably one of his most standout roles.
Yeah.
As Lopan.
And he actually pointed out that he played 3 different characters.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the basket case on wheels. He's the
Right.
10-foot tall roadblock.
Right.
And then he's the mysterious, the man you see for like a second in the alley.
Yes.
Where he's wearing the hat and the gloves.
Mm-hmm.
He never has a name, but yeah, we were commenting on that earlier. We were saying, is that Lopan? Yeah, that's probably him in his little spying civilian disguise.
Yeah, and it's a performance that I think a lot of fans, kind of goes over their head that, yeah, he's playing 3 different characters. The old man, and then there's, the Lopan the ghost, very different role. So it's really a testimony to his skills as an actor.
And in these 5 minutes, we're going to get a peek of Lopan in his ghost form. We're actually going to get started with these 5 minutes. We're talking about minutes 50 through 55 of Big Trouble in Little China. Minutes 50 start with Ghost Lopan standing up from his wheelchair, and they end with Wing Kong guards shooting into the water. And this scene, the scene starts in what's called Lopan's domain, according to the screenplay and some of the liner notes from the soundtrack. We notice that these minutes start with some great John Carpenter and Alan Howarth music. It punctuates Lopan's transformation. We get that white light where he goes from old to new. We get the chimes, these dramatic notes, and there is Lopan in his splendor. I mean, the costume is awesome, the makeup that's put on there. Did you have a chance, Leah? I mean, the scenes that you worked on, were obviously not with James Hong, but did you have a chance to see him on set or in his makeup at any time?
No. My only scenes were in the warehouse where we shot the fight scenes and where all of the girls were being held captive. And in fact, I'm a New York-based actor, and I went out to LA to work on Big Trouble in Little China, and I was actually staying maybe 5 minutes away from 20th Century Fox, but it turned out that my scenes were some of the only scenes that were being shot in downtown LA. And I was really fortunate that one of the other Wing Kong guards, Donna Noguchi, came and picked me up at 5 o'clock every morning to take me to set.
Well, that's interesting. So it wasn't on the back lot. It was actually shot on location somewhere in LA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a big warehouse in South LA.
Huh. I was wondering about this as I was reviewing the minutes because, I thought, that's a magnificent set, or is that actually a warehouse? It's like John J. Lloyd does such a great job on this that, I just wondered exactly that. So you've answered the question. Okay, that was a warehouse. That was off the lot.
Mm-hmm. And so, basically the only actors that I interacted with were Kurt Russell, who had his own trailer outside the warehouse, and I think at that time they had trailer a company. He had an actual company that provided those kind of trailers. And Don Lee, who the gun is being held to, the taller Chinese American, I know him from New York. Mm-hmm. The New York Asian American acting community is very small, and so I knew him from there. And Dennis Dunn, who is holding the gun, is actually a good friend of the family. So it was pretty much old home week on the set.
Hey,
that's awesome.
Now, being a New York actress, and you mentioned Donald Lee was based in New York, was there a lot of casting of actors from New York?
There were a few. I would say probably 10 actors. James Pax is from New York, does he play Lightning?
Right.
And Susie Pye, I believe, was cast out of New York. Jade Go, who was one of the prostitutes, or I wouldn't call her a prostitute, right? She's in an unfortunate circumstance, but
right.
Before she's the one that has lines. She was from New York, so I would say there was probably 10. There's a casting in New York, but a good amount of the talent was from LA.
Okay.
Oh, was she the one who was with Kurt Russell when he was dressed up as Henry Swanson?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's her.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to just go in order of some of the stuff that we're going to see here in the scenes. We're still in Lopan's domain. We're still with Lopan, and notice how Lopan is shot from the waist up as he floats down the hallway. He probably was on some sort of a cart that they were wheeled on. It's a pretty
Yeah.
fun kind of easy effect.
Yeah, and that's exactly what James Hong said.
Uh-huh.
You know, one of the big deals about Big Trouble in Little China, when you think about action films today, everything is CGI and wires and, you know, and the whole 9 yards. And this was really, really old school. So he is being pulled on a dolly.
Nice.
Yeah. It's such a simple but cool effect, and it totally works.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And on very high platforms. He said, very high platforms.
Yeah, we were commenting earlier, you know, how tall is Lopan supposed to be? You know, is he 10 feet? Is he 12? And then I mentioned that, oh, yeah, well, Jack Burton's pretty confident that he's 7 feet tall. But I seem to recall James Hong did mention in one of those sessions that, yeah, he was wearing very tall platform shoes for this one. So
he says, I'm actually looking at my article with his interview. It says that he was on 12-inch lifts.
Nice.
Wow. Nosebleed.
And he stood on a moving dolly.
Mm-hmm. And with that hat of his with the nail in it, that adds an extra foot or two. So he's a tall guy
right.
who's wearing that getup.
Right. And he actually is tall for an Asian American. So, you know, he's tall on top of it.
And then as he dollies down the hallway, we get those very 80s special effect scenes of Lopan ghosting through the furniture and the walls. It's, you know, it kind of dates the movie a little bit, but I think it works. Kind of reminded me of some of the effects that you might see in Ghostbusters at the time. But it had some really neat sound effects as he ghosts through it, you know, like a wrong sound.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a very
well,
cool.
You know, John Carpenter has been playing his music around the country at various concerts. Did you know that?
Yeah, that was one of my big mistakes this summer was when he came to San Francisco.
Not getting to one of the concerts.
Yeah, just, you know, I don't know what. I no excuse. I wish I had a good excuse, but I think it was just. I'll be honest. I think I just couldn't afford that ticket at the time. But now I'm definitely kicking myself about that. But you know, his new music career is so successful. I wouldn't be surprised if he does another album in the near future, and hopefully he tours again.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah, wouldn't that be? I mean, he was a musician and a filmmaker when he started out. So I think this is just, I think he's getting to. I'm imagining at least this is his second childhood. It's like, I'm in a band, I'm touring.
I mean, he did have his band along with Alan Howarth. They were called the Coupe de Villes. And the final song at the end of the movie is them singing and performing.
But isn't it? There's a music video of it.
Yes,
I've seen video of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another very delightfully 80s music video, complete with bright colors and animation and everything. Yeah,
I got to check I don't know if I've ever seen that video. I'm a little ashamed to say, as your co-host, I've missed something.
Well, we'll definitely have to put that up on the site as well. I'm pretty sure that's on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I noticed that the sets that they show here, very neat looking. They have a very contemporary Eastern flair to them. Yeah, more John J. Lloyd specialty stuff. And then we get to see Miao Yin. There she is. She's floating in that white dress in the white gold room. I remember seeing that and thinking that it kind of felt like something out of a magic show. There she's just sort of floating. I read up a bit in the screenplay, the W.D. Richter version, and it's described. Richter describes the room as the most extraordinary bridal chamber since the time centuries and centuries ago when Emperor Qing Ti, the sun, married Queen Pao Yue, the moon. So he had done a lot of research on Chinese history and mythology, and I guess they really wanted that to show through in these scenes.
I know that John really worked with the cast and talked to them about the Chinese culture, and a lot of that was incorporated into the film authentically. Mm-hmm. Peter Kwong mentioned that at that screening in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting because I think, it may not be obvious to viewers, but I think there's that underlying feeling of authenticity that just helps give the movie, such weight that, it just everything feels right. And if it feels right to an
Right.
actor, then you're just going to commit more to the scene. And instead of, somebody just saying, if it's just something made up and it's not, you're just going to go, whatever.
Yeah. Next, we get a close up of Lo Pan, and he's very happy to see Miao Yin. I love the makeup that they have on him. Awesome eye makeup.
Isn't that a great eyeshadow? It's
It's kind of Barbie blue, don't you think?
absolutely. And you know what? And I just blanked on her name, but Mrs. The actress's name, Mrs. O'Toole. I think that's the same eyeshadow.
Oh, Noelle Toy.
Yeah, Noelle Toy, who Leah, the Mrs. O'Toole, Noelle Toy. Did you know she was a burlesque performer in the 1930s?
I did. She was part of the whole Forbidden City circuit.
That's right. Yeah.
And wasn't Noelle? Was she the bubble dancer?
Yeah, bubble and fans.
Yeah. But
Right.
I just found an amazing clip of her from 1940 performing at Treasure Island where she's doing a fan dance, and we're just like, wow, that is cool.
Right. In fact, I was cast in Big Trouble in Little China. I was submitted for the audition by my manager, J.D. Wong, who was a dancer from the Forbidden City. So, and the Forbidden City, there's actually a documentary called Forbidden City USA. I believe Noelle is interviewed in that documentary that a friend of mine made, Arthur Dong, an award-winning documentary filmmaker, and he just put out a book on Forbidden City, and I believe Noelle is in that book as well. Her background and Jadine actually tells me that she taught Noelle the bubble and the fan dance.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That your manager was a dancer at Forbidden City. I mean, that's some amazing cultural history right there.
Yeah, I'll send you the details on the book. It's really, 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 really fabulous. I'm from San Francisco, and I have family members who went to Forbidden City, where essentially there were nightclubs in Chinatown where Asian American talent sang, like the Chinese American Frank Sinatra or the Japanese American Fred Astaire. So, singing, dancing, tap dancing, the whole nine yards. They were very, very popular in the 40s.
Yeah.
In San Francisco.
It's a place I've only heard about a little bit. I know about a little bit. But yeah, a very important cultural center in its time. And, you could say it was comparable to the Cotton Club.
Yes, exactly. You guys should watch the documentary. It's really fabulous.
Yeah.
You get a good sense of the artists of that time who really inspired us all.
No, definitely have to check that out. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And just as a quick aside, in racist America of the mid-century, there were these places like these nightclubs where you could express your creativity, and you could have your voice there through entertainment. So they special places, I think.
Jack Sue, who was in Barney Miller, was performed at Forbidden City, and the movie Flower Drum Song, that nightclub is sort of a version of what the nightclubs were, the Forbidden City nightclubs were like.
And just as a quick aside, was a young James Hong in Flower Drum Song, like playing, maybe a younger guy? I can't. IMDb.
Do you see it there?
Oh, don't have it in front of me, but it was just sort of an aside, like, hey, I haven't seen Flower Drum Song since I was a kid.
I mean, James Hong's been in so much stuff. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that one out and see.
Yeah. But, in the scene he has with Susie Pie.
Yes, he's the head waiter.
He was in there. Nice.
James Hong is the head waiter.
Yeah. So I imagine he was probably 24, 25, probably an early role in Hollywood. So that's cool. And,
well, at the screening in 2015, he talked about being 61 years in the business.
Wow.
Amazing.
I think it's actually his first film role or his first work on camera was with Groucho Marx.
Oh my! Wow.
Yeah. Seriously, you look at James Hong's, you go to IMDb and you look at, he has done everything with everybody.
Everything. And of course, Kung Fu Panda. I think, what is it? Kung Fu Panda is on Kung Fu Panda 3 now. He's the voice of, I'm going to look it up right now.
I mean, he's still going strong. Yeah, James is still doing voice work. He's still doing film work.
And television.
And television, yeah.
He, Tai Ma, and Elizabeth Sung were all in an episode of Elementary last year.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
So I saw all 3 of them here in New York. You know who Tai Ma is, don't you? Tai Ma, he's best known from Rush Hour. He's the father of I believe his daughter gets kidnapped. But if you look Tai Ma up on Google and you see him, you'll recognize him from many things.
Okay.
He's the voice. James Hong is the voice of Mr. Ping
mm-hmm.
and Kung Fu Panda.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that just came out last year. So I know he was doing a lot of press for that.
That's great.
That's kind of the beauty of an actor whose career has gone that long. I mean, we love him as Lo Pan, but there's a whole generation of kids who love him as Mr. Ping, and it's just
right.
Like you have different meaning to different people. It's kind of wonderful. I was going to say, with the scene with him and Susie Pie, this is a great little testimony to his acting, because, this is, I think, the scene where you feel bad for Lo Pan. I think any actor will tell you, like, if you play a villain, you want to have that moment where you get a little pathos and a little sympathy. And, there he is. He just wants to hug her. And, he goes, it's very subtle, but he goes from sort of a menacing, leering look to all, he gets kind of sad, like, oh, I can't touch her. And, and then he looks to the heavens and, that little, he whispers, please, of course, we don't know his ultimate designs for her, but in that moment, he takes that moment, and we feel bad for Lo Pan, poor guy.
Yeah. When I watched this movie as a kid, I used to think that when Lo Pan's hands passed through Miao Yin, I didn't realize that he was the ghost. For some reason, I thought that Miao Yin was like a hologram or a ghost image, and he was frustrated.
Wow.
But,
yeah. Well, that does sound like something. If you're cursed, you might not be able to pick something. That could be a hell. There's the hell of being able to hold things or pick up things.
Yeah.
And that everything becomes sort of transparent like that. It's a great effect from the 80s. Richard Edlund. And,
how do you think they did it?
Probably just an advanced. I'm forgetting the term.
Oh, the special effect of putting his hands passing through.
Yeah, it was just nice that it's translucent. You can see his hands in her body, which, I think about, older process. Yeah, the process shot. Mm-hmm. That's what, an older, more primitive process shot. You just see that the hand kind of passed through, and but you wouldn't be able to see his hand in her body, that translucence, which is, again, cutting edge special effects in the 80s, pre-digital.
Yeah, and I think it still holds up. That's a pretty cool effect.
Yeah, I don't think I really noticed it all the times I've seen it until, reviewing these 5 minutes and watching it over and over. It's like, oh yeah, it's like her body is water.
Yeah, it is like that. Now here's a question. So in this movie, they have a good mix of English, and I assume that's Mandarin Chinese that most people are speaking as opposed to Cantonese. But why is it that the lines that James Hong delivers here when he's by himself are spoken in English? I mean, I get it that the audience needs to be able to relate more, but would this have been a better scene if he had spoken his lines in Mandarin and there were English subtitles?
I don't think so. I think one of the really great things about Big Trouble in Little China is that, first of all, it's predominantly an Asian American cast.
Right.
But just as well, it's predominantly an Asian American cast where accents are not really required.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in, my first film was The Last Dragon, and my second film was Big Trouble in Little China. And I have met so many Asian American men who have come up to me and said to me, oh my God, you're in two of my very favorite movies, but it's because of the way Asian American men were portrayed. And, you know, they're funny, they're virile, they're human with very few accents, and they get the women. We are still struggling with that today.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't think it takes away from it at all.
No.
At all.
Yeah, Lia, you make a good point. We were discussing this in earlier minutes too when we were talking about in the White Tigers that Mrs. O'Toole, she doesn't have sort of your stereotypical Asian accent. No, she's got this kind of, you know, like what was the term you were giving? You know, Roz or something. You know, oh, just a minute, please. You know, like a very sort of raspy New York accent, and that
exactly.
Yeah, you know, it makes it feel, you know, more natural, more normal. Yeah.
Well, I also think that, you know, this movie came out in 1986. I don't know that another film exists with this kind of characterizations of Asian Americans. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, no, you may be right. I can't really think of another movie right now.
It was really groundbreaking for its time, and I think that's one of the reasons why it continues to be such a favorite. Not just, you know, it's a fun story, and but I know that so many of the cast members have gone on. For instance, with James Liu and Jeff Imada, they started as the stunt coordinators, as the martial arts coordinators, but they really worked very closely with John Carpenter, who then promoted them to, producer credits, and they have both since gone on to continue to work in the industry and be very well respected in the industry. Now, when you say it's sort of a who's who, you know, it's a lot of early appearances from people who have really continued to work in the industry.
Yeah, no, that's right. James Liu, as a matter of fact, he was the producer, at least. I'm not sure if he directed it, but there was a movie called 18 Fingers of Death that he worked on.
Wow.
We need to move along in the minutes. We've actually gone now from Lo Pan. Now we're back in the Wing Kong. Wang, Jack, and Eddie, they each have their guns. They're ready to move. We get a fun little moment where Wang says it's all clear when, of course, it's not, because here's Gerald.
Not.
Gerald.
Now, have you ever had the chance to talk to Gerald?
Not yet. We're trying to reach out to him. You know, we'd love to have him on if we can get him.
Right. Well, I'll give you a little tidbit about Gerald.
Yeah.
He says that when he told us a story at the screening, that he actually went into his audition with John Carpenter. You know, he's a very, very established martial artist, all ready to impress John Carpenter with his martial artistry. And instead, when he went down to 20th Century Fox, they gave him the two gold-plated six-shooters, which, of course, you know, you very well known for now. But he basically said, you know, well, what kind of martial arts is that? he didn't even know how to use a gun. And but John really created this character with the two guns and the two gold-plated pistols and the six-shooter and bullets and bandoliers around his chest and big bullets. He said that it was just really humongous. And he said, I don't know if you really caught the gist of it, but those bullets would never fit into a six-shooter.
That's right. But in this scene, he is able to sort of, he comes without his guns. He's ready to do some martial arts. But Wang's kung fu is really strong now. This is a different Wang than we've seen earlier in the film. I mean, he really kicks butt in these scenes. Yeah. And I love that Jack is there trying to use that gun of his, the Tech 9. But of course, you know, the safety. Typical Jack. Just nothing working right away.
Well, have you read any of the interviews with Kurt Russell?
Just a little bit here and there.
Kurt Russell was, because he had no martial arts experience or really firearm experience, it was his choice to be in that sort of bumbling mode, and that it actually works very well for his character.
Oh yeah, it's
you know, leave it to the experts. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I've said before, this is right in the middle of the 80s, and, we've got all these inflated superhero action stars, Stallone, Schwarzenegger doing, literally larger than life. And here's this guy who's seems totally, in terms of Russell and his performance, totally comfortable with goofing off. And it's way ahead of its time, I think, in that regard. And just his willingness, to be the bumbler.
And we do get that sense of his accidental heroism because he finally gets the gun to work and he takes out that shotgun wing Kong right there. I like how Kurt Russell treats this part. He's speechless. Jack is speechless. You see his mouth is wide open. He has actually just transitioned at this point from a character who was all talk to somebody who's actually done some real action in this case.
Right.
And so you get that good moment. And then, of course, he returns back to his bravado form, as soon as Eddie asks him, oh, yeah, first time you ever plugged someone? And, he says, oh, yeah, of course not. Just moves on. Yeah. Great line.
Yeah, but it is worth noting, as much as we, love the bumbling Jack Burton, he did save Wang in that scene, mostly. He did, that guy could have taken Wang out, but Jack got him.
Yep.
So.
Right. The accidental hero.
Yep.
The accidental hero, exactly. He's just a very large, handsome sidekick. Yeah. And this is where, this is more and more Dennis Dunn becomes the hero. This action scene with him, as I recall, this is his first major fight scene. He has a bigger one in the next 5 minutes. Yeah. But this is where he's taking charge, Where's Mao Yun,
And now we move on to the highlight of our episode, the prison set. They take the elevator up, and now they're in the area with this long bridge to where the prisons are. And so you were saying, Leah, that this is not a set. This was actually filmed in some warehouse downtown LA. Right.
This is a warehouse that they built. I guess they built the set in and on. And when I auditioned for the film in New York, my background is I started doing Kempo karate in the 7th grade, and I took Lia Chang Kung Fu and praying mantis Kung Fu. And when I auditioned, I worked with swords during the audition. But when I got to my first day of set, I was told that I was going to be using a staff.
That's right.
So, and do stick fighting, which of course I was not familiar with. But as an actor, it's all about improv, and you just learn in the field. And James Liu worked with me as the stunt coordinator, and their idea for the four of us was they wanted it to be the most, can I say,
Go for it.
This is something, the most kick-ass group of women fighters. And that's what they had in mind for the four of us.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows because the four of you definitely give Wang and Eddie a run for their money. So it's a great sequence that all of you are in.
Yeah, I was mentioning before, the first time I saw this movie, I was 10 years old, and I saw it on cable.
It's played a lot on cable.
Oh, yeah.
Big Trouble.
In fact, it was playing on HBO all week. I was actually stuck in a hotel room for a week with chickenpox, and that was all they showed was Fraggle Rock and Big Trouble in Little China.
Wow.
And I just remember... I had seen movies with kung fu fighting and stuff before, but this was the first time where I had seen fighting between men and women. And I was especially impressed with the fact that the women fighters were winning for a bit. And I thought that was the coolest thing.
Right. But would you also say that most of the kung fu fighting films that you watched were not in English?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, it was just sort of your Bruce Lee type stuff. It was dubbed over, the whole joke about the bad English dubbing. So this was neat. It was fun. It was bloodless, which was good. I think it kind of had a cartoon quality to it.
Right.
But it was just fun. A lot of action going on. Yeah, I loved it. It got me wanting to eventually make a website for this film.
Did either of you others ever study martial arts?
Yeah. I was in the 70s. Definitely in the shadow of the legend of Bruce Lee. I took Gung Fu for about 4 or 5 years, and I definitely remember me and my dad going to see Bruce Lee movies. Yeah, but they, definitely having the subtitles, and seeing some Shaw Brother movies. And, I'm from the Bay Area too. So, yeah, as you probably know, Leah, the legend of Bruce Lee is particularly strong here. It was at the Great Stage Theater, where that was the first American theater to show one of his Hong Kong movies. So yeah.
Well, my grandmother used to take me to kung fu movies all the time.
Oh, it's so cool.
It was playing at a theater on Market Street. It's not like she even took me to Chinatown. It was some theater on Market Street.
Yeah, I wonder if which one was that? Like down on 6th and Market.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Josh, why don't you take a break? Lee and I are going to talk about old San Francisco.
Well, don't you want to know about my awesome martial arts skills?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Cut you off.
All right. I was a fencer in college. I was a saber and foil fencer. That's it.
Well, that takes a great deal of skill.
Yeah. No, fencing's awesome. I think,
and accuracy.
Yeah. Just a quick aside. I know some 12-year-olds who are super into fencing. There seems to be a bit of a resurgence in interest in fencing, because I know a lot of kids who take fencing and love it.
Do you think it's because of the Olympics?
Possibly the Olympics and
Star Wars.
Yes, but that would be more like Bushido, because you have the two hands and the in the stylings of the samurai. But I'd imagine Lord of the Rings movies and things like that, fantasy, maybe a little Game of Thrones. But yeah, it's fun watching little kids fence.
Well, moving along in the minutes, before we get to the cool part with some of the fighting, I had a note here that is interesting that the Wing Kong seemed to have let Margot keep her pad and pen so that she could write about her experiences for the Berkeley People's Herald. Nice contrast with Gracie Law, who's just totally hogtied. So we can see who probably put up more of a fight when she got captured.
Well, don't you also find it interesting to, Kim Cattrall in a very early role, who was then so famous for Sex and the City and has a great theater background, and Kate Burton. I mean, Kate Burton is a very, very respected actress, and yet here this was probably one of her first roles too, on film. Very different than the characters that they portray today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about both of those actresses in previous episodes. Yeah, both have a stage background, but it looks like Kate Burton is really doing a lot of stuff lately.
Yeah. And she's primarily like a theater actress. I imagine she's based in New York.
No, she's doing a lot on television. She was on Scandal.
Okay. Yeah, Scandal, that's right.
She worked a lot on TV.
Cool.
And then we get the female Wing Kong guards reading the paper and chatting. So I have a question. I think you're probably one of the best people to answer this. So on that,
what we're reading?
So on that set, what are they what are they reading? I mean, I noticed that if you look really carefully, and only if you're looking at this 5 minutes at a time can you notice this, but there seem to be newspaper clippings on the back wall, and there's even a magazine cutout of a woman. So what was being planned in that room? Do you remember any scenarios that Carpenter was telling you about?
No.
So we can only speculate.
I have to say, exactly. I think actually, I'm just trying to look at it myself. It was obviously such a long time ago, but I think actually it's probably a Chinese newspaper.
I'm wondering, was that supposed to be the planning room for trying to find the Chinese girls with green eyes for Lo Pan? And are prospective women actually brought to these cells, to see if they could pass that test? And you do see a picture of a woman on the wall. Was that somebody they were shooting for? I don't know.
Yeah, I just assumed it was the break room.
Right?
Yeah,
Well, it's where it's the guard room.
Yeah.
Because through the other door are all the women.
Yeah,
through the other gate.
Even the Wing Kong need a coffee break.
Hello.
Yeah. No,
I think it would be tea. Tea.
Yeah, you're right.
Green tea. Right.
Yeah.
Well, then Wang shows up and he acts like a crazy person. He starts shouting. He's got the hostage act with Eddie. I thought it was a pretty cool plan, actually, how he does that to make sure that Jack can climb under the bridge and get past them.
Diversion.
Yes. Wang is threatening them with their souls to be sent to the hell of the oily dragon. Yet another hell that's mentioned in this film, one of many.
Well, it's all the Chinese mythology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you happen to know just how many hells there are?
Endless.
Endless.
Endless hells.
But then yeah. So then your character, and do you remember the actress who you were with at that time?
Yeah, that's my friend Donna Noguchi. She's the one who would bring me to set. Come and pick me up at 5 o'clock. I think we were supposed to be on set at 7 o'clock in the morning, and she lived in Huntington Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So she would drive from Huntington Beach to Century City, and then we would go to downtown LA.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
5 o'clock in the morning.
5 o'clock in the morning. That's dedication for you.
Yeah.
Only way to beat the traffic, you have to go at 5 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a question, Leah. In this sequence, it's always I still marvel at you may have 30 seconds where you're on screen, but that could be, especially in an action scene, that could be weeks. Do you recall how many days?
I was there for a week.
A week. Okay.
Yeah, I was there for a week.
Yeah. Those are long days every day, during that week. And
because we weren't only in this scene. We were in another scene when they get knocked out. In the elevator.
Right.
Oh yes, that's right. That's with the with Thunder and the cigar, and he tells everybody to go and take them.
And he tells us to pick them up and drag them off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was the second of the two scenes.
Okay.
That's right. I forgot about that scene. You guys are in that scene too. So we're
sort of in the dark.
So you got to do a scene with the great Carter Wong too.
We did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How was that like?
Oh, he was cool. But and although I wasn't in a scene with Peter and I are good friends. We're family friends as well.
Oh, great.
So we're going to have a good time when he comes to town next month for the screening.
Please say hi to Peter Kwong. I am one of my great guilty pleasure movies is a movie he did called Never Too Young to Die with Gene Simmons.
Okay.
So tell him I'm a huge fan of that movie, and just tell him I said hi and I'm a fan.
I will do that.
Great. Leah, I'm going to totally nerd out on you here.
Okay.
Into 100% nerd mode because, in these movie podcasts, we get into the nitty gritty and, we talk about what do you think is really happening there so like that staff, that smoke coming out of that staff, is that magic smoke? Is that poison? Was there any discussion on set? Is it magic smoke? Is it just regular smoke? Or is it just like, okay, when I yell action, 3, 2, 1,
I think it was supposed to be tear gas.
That is correct. I actually read this in the screenplay, and it says it pumps out a burst of tear gas. 10 points to Leah.
Okay.
Whee!
But see, that's again nerd mode. I was like, it must be there's magic all over the place in this movie. So I thought maybe it's magic smoke, maybe it's a magic staff. I think too much. I'm left alone, and it's you watch the scene over and over. Yeah, you start to come to your own conclusions. So I'm okay now. I'm drinking a glass of water, and I'm getting out of nerd mode. So I'm going to be okay.
So was there somebody then off screen who pressed a button and then that kind of activated the squib and then the smoke came out, something like that?
I think that particular squib, it's actually activated through my.
Oh, did you push the button or something?
It's coming through it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, even better. You got to push the button. I'm back in nerd mode. Because there's, what I know about filmmaking. Yeah, I'm assuming, there's a special effects technician who got to do it. But the fact that you got to push the button and smoke and, incapacitate your friend Dennis Dunn, that's pretty cool. That's made my day.
And then, you get a good 10, 15 seconds of just advancing, and hitting back and forth with the staff, back, forth, Until, unfortunately, Eddie's forearm to the back kind of ends it.
Oh, you know what? Something that you've completely forgot, but which you called to my attention.
Oh, yeah.
The board game.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the board game of Big Trouble in Little China just came out, and my character is a card.
So there's a new board game out, and you have your own card?
Isn't it a board game? You're the one who sent me the card.
Yeah, no, that's true. There is a legendary Big Trouble in Little China card game that just came out a couple of months ago. Yes, and yes, Leah, you have your own card. I just sent it to you. Yes, yeah, Wing Kong staff guard. I'll have to post a picture of that up on the site as well.
Oh, got to.
I mean, that is just insane.
Isn't that great?
I think it's insane.
That's like having.
I can understand rain. I can understand lightning. I can understand the 6-shooter. But the fact that this character made the cut is really cool.
Well, again, I mean, you're the one. You have the staff that we have now established as tear gas and not magic smoke. I'm still trying to adjust to that, but yeah, you have that moment, the tear gas staff. That's pretty cool in a pop culture sense.
Yeah.
So.
And so you worked with James Liu on trying to, I guess, stage out how the fight sequence was going to work. Is that right?
To learn how to use the staff, I worked with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I started from scratch in my martial arts capacity.
Yeah. I imagine, though, having your martial arts background, that had to help a whole lot. Just, having to adjust to the staff, you had kind of the fundamentals in terms of movement and balance.
Of course. And as I said before, as an actor, you're used to learning on the fly, and you're used to learning in the field. So,
right.
And he was really wonderful to work with. So,
cool.
It's all good.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So another question, going back to the day. I mean, it's big set, big budget action scene. Was it generally a lot of camaraderie? Was it even you probably imagine had a lot of work and a lot of blocking, but was it a fairly?
Oh, it was a fairly low key set.
Okay, good. Because I could imagine that being the opposite, like we're behind schedule and that's no fun. But yeah, it sounds like you.
Well, certainly there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
But I recall my experience on Big Trouble to be nothing but a joy.
Great.
Did you find that the actors who played the Wing Kong kind of hung out more, and the good guys kind of hung out separately?
Well, it was only the women.
Oh, right.
This scene is only the women.
Yeah.
I never, other than knowing, in fact, I didn't know Peter then, but other than Peter, I didn't meet any of the other actors until 2015.
Wow.
I didn't meet Al Young or Gerald or James or George Chung until 2015.
Wow.
So it was really you witnessed a very special event, which I don't think will ever happen again. I asked Peter if there had ever been, like an opening night screening or anything like that, and he said no. When the 25th anniversary happened, there was a screening, and Peter saw John Carpenter at that screening. But other than that, there really hasn't been anything of this nature. It's very cool.
Yeah, that was very neat. So unfortunately, the Wing Kong guard just got attacked. She's down. And now we kind of quickly go to Jack on top of the cage. I remember when watching this on cable, the scene where you see Margot say, "Oh, how are you going to spring us?" And then Jack says, "I have no idea." That was the one part that they used to show in a lot of cable TV promos for the film. Kind of exemplifies the film. Jack as the not quite the hero, doesn't know what's going on. So I recall.
And very PG.
Yes. Other notes I have here, Eddie's not a bad fighter. This is the first time we really get to see Eddie try to do some hand-to-hand combat, and he holds out well, Donald Lee.
Yes, he does.
And then Jack shoots the lock. We get our classic ricochet sound effects. A lot of fun sound effects in this film. Alan Howarth wasn't the sound effects guy on this film, turns out. They had a big group, but yeah, like the sound effects in this movie. Yeah, we have the fight between Eddie and Wang and the female guards. And then Jack and company, they run away. And I noticed that Gracie keeps her gag on. Jack, he got her free, but he never had a chance to actually take her gag off.
Yeah, I
Well,
noticed that
don't
too.
you also think it works well as a sight gag too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
They run, they jump in the water. I like how Margot doesn't want to get wet, but Jack helps by just pushing her in. Not something you always see in these type of films.
And once again in this movie, characters are getting wet.
Yes.
As I said before, this is a very damp movie. It's raining. There's sewers. There's a pool, and it almost has a bit of a crazed Esther Williams vibe. Still going to jump in the pool and dance around, and everybody has their own separate cannonball or belly flop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, even Jack gets accidentally bumped into the water by Gracie. Another little comic moment there.
What is your favorite part of this film?
Ooh. I love the whole scene when Jack is with Lopan as the basket case on wheels. That whole conversation where he says "indeed," that just killed it for me when I watched this. I love seeing that scene. I love seeing thunder expand and explode. I love the fights, just the accidental heroism and the comedy. It had everything for me. I love this film.
Yeah, hard for me to pick out a favorite moment, but probably what's coming up in the next 5 minutes. We're trapped, or I think we're trapped. Just that whole sequence in that line. Leah, do you have a favorite moment?
Do I have a favorite moment?
Yeah, I mean, other than the moment you're in, of course.
Yes, I do. I have a favorite moment. My favorite moment or section is when Rain or Peter and Dennis are fighting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they're flipping in the air.
Yeah.
And then their characters are, it's like a shadow puppetry going on too.
Yeah. And
I thought that was very cool.
that is a super cool scene. Yeah. It's flying through the air and punching each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cool sequence.
Sword fight. Yeah.
That's right. It's a sword fight.
Mm-hmm. And the video game fight between Lopan and Egg. I mean, there's so many great moments in this film, and we're gonna get to them in the upcoming minutes.
And of course, Victor Wong is a veteran actor who plays Egg Shen.
Mm-hmm.
You just are really, really great in terms of Asian American actors.
Yeah, it was really an all-star cast, if you think about it. Yeah.
Great performances all around. It's, because of the light comedy fantasy aspects of the movie, maybe you don't think about that, but you really get it down to the nitty gritty. Just great acting in this movie all around.
And the minutes end with Eddie screaming out, "Ah!" He jumps in, and now everybody's wet, and that ends the 5 minutes. And this was great, Leah. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about? Stuff that you're working on? Some of your photography stuff or your journalism stuff or anything like that?
Actually, last year I became an award-winning filmmaker. My filmmaking partner, Garth Kravitz, and I created a film as part of the Asian American Film Lab's 11th 72-hour shootout. Mm-hmm. And I was nominated for Best Actress. It was called Hide and Seek. And it took on the larger theme of beauty. Mm-hmm. And so that's really exciting. My filmmaking partner and I created a film company called Bev's Girl Films, which is named after my mother, Bev Umahara. And it is a company that fosters inclusion and diversity on both sides of the camera.
That is very exciting.
That sounds great.
Currently what I'm working on, and I'm actually working on a film. It initially was going to be a documentary on the story of my mother, who she came to her calling. It came late in life at 47 when she made the sudden transformation from a humble, hardworking secretary and mother of 4 into a labor activist and a respected union leader and a role model for rank and file workers and women of color. And so, but I decided that I think it would be better represented as a narrative film. So that's something that I'm working on. And I'm currently in a music video called Kimosabi by a musician named Nambi.
Okay.
And the music video was directed by Matthew Dillon Cohen. So that's on YouTube for all the world to see. So those are the things that I'm working on right now.
And is there any place online where we can see Hide and Seek, or is that still making the festival circuit?
You can absolutely see it. It is at www.devsgirlfilms.wordpress.com.
Excellent. Definitely
click on the link right there.
Put a link there. That'd be great. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I was reading about it earlier this morning. Yeah, congratulations on your career now as a filmmaker as well. That's fantastic.
Congrats.
Very
That's
exciting. No, you got to run. But again, yeah, thanks so much for being on the show. It was fantastic. And yeah, good luck with all future filmmaking projects. That's so exciting.
I will. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Lia. And for all of our listeners, please continue to find us at 5minutesoftrouble.com. Check us out on Facebook at 5 Minutes of Trouble. Be sure to join our discussion group called the 5 Minutes of Trouble Truck Stop. We're also on Twitter at 5 Minutes Trouble. And if you can, please subscribe to our podcast, 5 Minutes of Trouble on iTunes. If you like the show, please give us a nice rating and review if you can. We're also on Stitcher. And that ends our 5 minutes. So this is the Podcast Express signing off. Tune in next week for another 5 Minutes of Trouble.